Hi there, and welcome to the IBAC Tech Trek podcast. I am your host, Tom Reed, and I'll be your science officer on this journey where we explore the outer reaches of insurance technology. Beaming aboard to join us today is Joseph D'Souza, who is president and CEO of ProNavigator. Hey, Joseph, how's it going?
Hey, Tom. Thank you for the opportunity.
My pleasure. Joseph, you've been around the industry for a while. I'm sure you're relatively well known, but for those who don't know you or don't know ProNav, can you introduce yourself and give us a bit of background on ProNavigator?
Yeah, absolutely. Founder and CEO at ProNavigator. We're a technology company 100% focused on the insurance industry. Started the company back in 2016, which feels like a lifetime ago, but it was only 7 years. They say when you fall into the insurance industry, you never really leave. So I think I'm going to be here for a while. There's a lot to do. But really, I started the company and kind of take you back to 2016, where I remember my policy was coming up for renewal and I had a question on a coverage. And I picked up the phone to call my insurance carrier. And an hour and 35 minutes later, I was still on that call. I actually still have a screenshot of that phone call today. Extremely frustrated and annoyed, couldn't really understand why, an industry which is so important and all the resources and size couldn't get an answer to what I thought was a simple question. So that kind of really led me to this journey of starting ProNavigator. And, kind of as we dug into it, we recognized that, the insurance market is extremely complex. The days of being able to serve your clients and your prospect needs with just a handful of go-to carriers is kind of gone. Marketing and risk and finding the right coverage, involves scanning huge volumes of information, carrier market data, a fire hose of underwriting guidelines and policy wordings and endorsements and procedures. And today for a brokerage, that involves, logging into multiple carrier portals, Control F on a document, navigating internal intranets or cheat sheets, or picking up the phone to call an underwriter. And that data, those documents are changing all the time. Binding authorities paused, regulations change, number of exceptions keeps growing. And then you've got to balance this crazy amount of bulletins and communications that land in the broker's inbox. And so it's challenging. It's challenging for a tenured staff, but even more for new hires, where there's all these places where they have to go to not only learn about the markets and the products and their offerings, but they have to learn how to find information. They have to learn how to search for things, this breadcrumb trail. And so that's kind of what we set out to solve, because the implications are, increased call average handling time, lack of consistency, managers having to constantly answer questions over and over again. And the way it should all work is there should be one system for that knowledge that's centralized, that's up to date, that's as quick and easy as Google is, which is what ProNavigator is and what we do. We really simplify accessing this growing and ever-changing information, from underwriting guidelines to policy wordings and endorsements. We centralize it, we update it daily. We make it easy for brokers to search and compare that across all the markets, not just faster, but also more accurate. And the value is simplicity and efficiency. Brokers are tired of navigating carrier portals. They're tired of the redundancies, the extra clicks, the needs for constant data reentry, and all those speed bumps along the way of doing their job. So that's really kind of what ProNavigator does. And we got a long way to go, but some really good success in trying to solve that one problem.
Awesome. And just for our listenership here, when you said Control F, I assume you meant like find, as opposed to, the other Control F, which I've heard said with not quite as nice a word.
Absolutely, yes. The keyword search, where you've got to type in the exact word you're looking for in order to find what you're trying to look for.
So would you describe yourselves then as sort of the Wikipedia or Google of insurance knowledge?
That's what our customers kind of called us way back when, and it kind of stuck. An internal Google for your brokerage to be able to search all the market information, to compare underwriting information across your markets, to really speed up finding information and finding up-to-date information so that you can better serve your customers.
Interesting. A number of years ago when I was on the broker side, I remember talking to a broker down in Florida who had 100 and something locations, and I asked him, well, how does he manage, his markets in Florida, obviously with hurricanes and all kinds of weather events. The underwriting there can get super complicated.
Right.
And he had indicated to me that he had, quote unquote, all of the markets in Florida, which it turns out was 185. And I was like, how is it possible to keep the underwriting criteria straight, given that he has so many markets and they're constantly changing, like a world of change that we have, that as Canadians have never seen. Like we think our world is complicated, their world is 10 times as complicated. And they actually implemented their own internal Wikipedia, which is being updated by the frontline staff. I, as a frontline person, talk to you as an underwriter, and if there's something new, I would update that on their version of Wikipedia. So it sounds like you guys are automating a similar kind of idea where you don't have to have frontline staff burning time and energy on this, probably getting a few things wrong here and there. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. Usually at least one person, sometimes more, or sometimes you try on multiple people, but you're overriding each other's work. You're missing something, a bulletin that landed in your inbox. Changes are happening daily. I mean, we update brokerages accounts every single day, and every single day there's new. So it's impossible for a brokerage to keep up to date, and it's impossible to give the best coverage. You risk not being able to provide the best coverage because you default to the one or two markets which you know the best. You miss out on opportunities to cross-sell and upsell because you missed, being able to properly see what was out there and what was available. So there is some significant impacts to your company and your brokerage, but also just the customer experience and the slower response times and employee experience of just, where do I go? How do I find all this?
So does this cover just personal insurance, or does it cover the whole gamut of insurance products?
Yeah, so we support personal lines, farm, commercial, specialty, high net worth, and even life insurance. We've just expanded into life insurance as well. We really took the approach of building the platform to be flexible and adaptive. And so from the user interface, from custom filters, making sure that regardless of your brokerage and your setup, we can support you.
Cool. So without giving away any proprietary knowledge here, how does your system, how does Ask Sage, how does ProNavigator go in there and get this information? It sounds a bit like magic, but why don't you maybe pierce the veil a little bit there?
Absolutely. So there's really, I think, three types of places or sources that brokerages need to reference. So there's carrier market information. We partner with a number of carriers to be able to pull down and update information. Sometimes we're even getting that information in advance so that brokers can be aware of future changes that are coming down. There's internal systems. So we integrate with systems like your email, Outlook, SharePoint, OneDrives. You might be housing internal procedure documents or workflows or job aids or cheat sheets that you have created internally that's specific only to your brokerage. And then there's sometimes external things, flood maps or data that needs to be pulled in from other places. So we look to pull from all of those three places and update it so that a broker really has the full picture. And in one platform, in one place, they're able to search and find and not miss anything.
Very cool. So let's talk about the business impact or business benefit of the tool here. So there's three metrics, or three sets of metrics, if you will, that I like to think about. There's efficiency / productivity, right? So how do brokerages do more with the same people, or the old adage of more with less? How does it impact and improve the client experience? And how does it impact and improve a brokerage's growth?
So I think the way I think about it, the way I think about technology as a whole, but especially in this world of AI, it really should be freeing up our time to focus on work that actually matters. Free us up to do more important and complex things. And when you're not stuck spending hours searching, you get to do what you do best. And so on internal efficiencies and productivity, by eliminating the need to navigate multiple systems or relying on internal chat groups to ping somebody to get an answer, we're seeing an average of 2 to 3 hours per week in savings for a brokerage. One of our clients, a medium-sized broker, I think they were about 20 employees. When they calculated, they effectively added a full-time employee's worth of productivity without that additional hire, just by reducing the places you have to go and the time spent searching. It also shortens the learning curve for new hires.
So basically what you're saying is 2 to 3 hours per week per person, which
Correct.
is effectively about 5%, maybe a little bit more than 5% benefit. That's a big deal. And you're saying that you've actually got proof points where you can go back to your clients and they're actually articulating that themselves?
Absolutely. I mean, depending on your role, for some roles, it might actually end up being more than that, more than 30 minutes a day. But on average, 2 to 3 hours a week in savings and efficiencies. We have a number of case studies actually published on our website, and a recent one that we just published where we saved one brokerage 10,000 hours in the last year. So it's pretty significant for them. So whether it's a 20-person brokerage or 200, there's going to be efficiency gains just in time spent searching. And then not to mention what I call sometimes unquantifiable benefits. So are you shortening the learning curve for new hires, making it easier for them to ramp up? The insights that we can provide to you inside your organization really brings to light, well, we need to do more training. We need to close this knowledge gap that our team has. Some of those things are a little bit harder to quantify, but just from a pure ROI and time savings efficiencies, it can be quite significant.
Yeah, awesome. So let's productivity. Talk about the benefits for client experience and growth. How's your tool benefiting those elements as well?
Well, I kind of take you back to the founding story. Speed matters, right? In this day and age, speed matters. If brokers can provide faster and more accurate information to clients, that just eliminates so much of this back and forth and on hold, which is what happens when you've got outdated or scattered information. The other thing is accurate information is absolutely critical. Knowing that you're referencing the latest change. So our system is updating this daily and we've got built-in versioning. That ensures that brokers stay informed about the latest change and they're able to provide accurate information, obviously, taking away that risk of E&O, and ensuring that their team is referencing the most current information. And when you think about growth and sales, upsell, cross-sell becomes so much easier when you have all the market information at your fingertips. You can easily fill holes in coverage gaps. We have a very robust search and comparison tool. So brokers can see multiple products, multiple coverage options, policy wording side by side, and it really helps to highlight the different options they have available, which can translate in increased premium, a more complete coverage for clients, and that can have a significant impact in overall revenue. Even determining where's the best place to place your risks with all the markets you have, you can maximize your incentives and really make sure you're not missing out on your preferred markets in certain scenarios.
Awesome. So let's talk about some technical considerations. So first and foremost is security. So some of this information, I assume, has sensitive information there, maybe not person identifiable information, but certainly sensitive.
Sure.
How do you manage the security of that information?
Yeah, security is extremely critical. We've invested heavily in what we call building an enterprise grade solution. So it's a foundation of security, of privacy, of compliance. We have strict industry standard certifications, so we're SOC 2 compliant. High availability. Our uptimes are 99.97%, and that's reflected in our agreements. Data is encrypted in transit at rest. And then permissioning, who has access to what, and making sure that only the right people see what's actually relevant for them. So I think because we're national and we serve some very large organizations, we've really had to ensure from the get-go that we invest heavily, which I know is challenging sometimes for earlier stage companies, but really invest heavily in security and ensuring that we're compliant and we're best in class when it comes to our platform.
Awesome. So you talked a few times about smaller brokerages versus larger brokerages Can you talk about how you guys scale the platform to meet the needs of a smaller versus a larger brokerage?
Yeah, it's optimized both from a platform perspective, but even if you get into kind of pricing as well, it's really designed to scale with your brokerage. I think one of the advantages we have is that there's a lot of these enterprise capabilities that are built in. So whether you're a small or a large brokerage, you get to benefit from that. We work with many of the largest brokerages in Canada. We have over 10,000 users on our platform. So an organization, regardless of their size, they could start with one business line, they could start with one office, one location, and then scale up over time and benefit from all the investments that we've made. That large scale organizations get to benefit, smaller organizations can benefit as well, without it being a huge lift on your IT team or an army of consultants to make it work.
Right. Speaking of making it work, once a brokerage signs up, there's always implementation, right? Which is where the vast majority of technology projects end up trashing and burning is on the implementation side, training, support, ongoing maintenance, et cetera. Can you talk about the resources that you guys provide in terms of that implementation, in terms of training, and also in terms of keeping the platform up to date?
Yeah. And it's something we've gotten, I think, better over time, because when I think about it, earlier on compared to where we are today, where we can be live in days before it could have taken us months. I think it's a good lesson for us as founders and insure tech providers. It's not just here's the tool, figure out how to make it work, right? It takes much more than just great software to stand up a world-class process, and change management is never easy. But just from a platform perspective, we've designed it to be very quick and easy to set up without any IT effort. I mean, things like single sign-on, there's a little bit of effort to make sure logins are smooth, but it's really out of the box. You can get up and running really quickly. It can be managed by the business. And we also then offer you analytics, so you can see how are users interacting with it, how often are they using it, where are the gaps in knowledge, how do we better train our team, standard out of the box analytics, and then of course kind of custom reports. So I think really as a whole, that's very important for us to make sure that our team can give brokerages the support they need to be up and running really quickly.
So can you define really quickly? So you talked about months back in the early days now. So what, for a typical brokerage, what is a typical sort of flash to bang time frame?
Yeah, generally I would say 2 weeks we can be live, and that's work on our end, because it's really what are the markets you're working with, who are the users, what lines of business, what are the roles. The part where it could sometimes get delayed is where is the internal content that your team needs to reference. So do we need access to intranets or SharePoints or cheat sheets, and make sure that some of that internal brokerage information is also supported. So that's where there's collaboration with the broker to make sure that we can get that information and help them clean it up and version it and take out an archive information that isn't necessary. But from our side, days on our end, and then, I would say on average 2 weeks in working with them on getting some of their internal content in. It's fairly easy. You could do it yourself. You can drag and drop video, audio, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF. We support any type of file type. But generally, we're going in and helping them get some of that information out and really making sure that they can have a clean single source of truth, if you will, so that when a broker logs in, they have everything that they need up to date and current.
Yeah, it's brokerage has spent years and years sort of putting together a lot of their tricks of the trade, so to speak. I guess you don't want to lose that stuff and overwrite it with something generic, right? You want to keep all those brokerage specific things that they've managed to come up with using their own brain, their own sweat over the years.
Yeah, each app is completely siloed, so everything that brokerage sets up is completely independent and only for access for the folks within their organization. And you speak about that institutional knowledge, right? You've got tenured staff leaving the industry, and there's all this knowledge that's within that brokerage that is really your competitive advantage, your secret sauce. How do you retain that? How do you document that and ensure that you're setting your future brokerage up for success?
Awesome. So let's get down to the brass tacks here. How much does it cost?
So we structure our cost on a per user per month subscription fee. I wouldn't say we're the cheapest out there. We typically start at around $40 a user per month and then scale down from there depending on the size of your organization. And then there's usually a setup fee that's pretty small amount to just get you up and running and make sure that we can do training and support. It's a minimal amount. And then we have larger volume discounts to make it more economical for larger teams. But I think regardless of putting $1 or $1,000, we need to clearly communicate what that ROI is. And, as we talked about earlier, it can be quite substantial, where you're saving 2 to 3 hours per week per user. That's significant cost savings, and it makes it a no-brainer in terms of the subscription cost.
So if I do the math here, so 2 to 3 hours per person per week, that's, let's say 10 hours per month, you're charging $40. So that's $4 an hour that is being paid. And I'm pretty sure it's illegal to pay your employees that amount of money. Seems like a pretty straightforward value proposition, right? I'm normally paying somebody $30 an hour, and I can supplement their time with a $4 an hour tool, for which I'm getting $30 an hour back. Seems like a pretty straightforward value proposition.
It's really time savings, right? All the other efficiencies that actually really matter. Referencing the latest information and not a version that's 6 months old, right? The new folks coming in, right? There's a whole lot of benefits that are much harder to quantify. But for every dollar you spend, especially in this day and age, there's so many tools out there. It's our job to communicate to our customers, our brokerage partners, the value that we provide, and they should question it, and they should feel like this is a great investment and something that is a staple to their tech stack. And we have customers who've been with us from day one and continue to see huge value. And to me, that's the biggest measure of success, is the customers you have and the ones that continue to use you consistently day in and day out.
Okay. That's awesome. Is there anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what's really interesting, and we talked about this just before the call here, Tom, is where technology and artificial intelligence is going, and the capabilities for completing workflows and automating tasks is pretty significant. And I think companies that you're going to feature on IBAC, vertical specific solutions that can really narrow down on solving for the industry, are going to have a huge advantage over an out-of-the-box system or trying to build it yourself. That to me is very exciting. When I see the capabilities of some of these large language models, of course, AI has been core to us from day one, but some of the advancements has been pretty incredible. And I'm super excited about where that's going. And it's a journey, right? Our partners have been with us on this journey. Brokers have been with us on this journey, and are very excited about the future and how we can help really free them up to do things of much higher value, to be there for their customers when they need them. So just getting started. If I was to say anything, we've been here 7 years and we're just getting started, and we need folks like you and IBAC and associations and customers and brokers and carriers to solve this big challenge of information and reduce those speed bumps so that we can have technology that moves the business and the industry forward, and not technology that holds us back.
The world of insurance is changing because the world of tech is changing. Join us on the journey at ibactech.ca.